Hey everyone, Jason Verdelli with Phase 2 Solutions, where digital media meets real business objectives. And today we're in our segment of experts on issues. And I am very, very excited. We have an awesome guest on the line here today. Her name's Stef Miller. She's the marketing manager at usertesting.com. And usertesting.com is probably one of the most unique services that I've seen on the web. I mean, we all have, you have a website, you have an app, you have these things, you have these this sort of digital real estate out there, but, really getting an understanding to how people are interacting with that and getting real good feedback with that is absolutely priceless. Save you a lot of time, a lot of money in the process. But of course, we're not here to hear me talk about it. Stef, we have you on here. So I'm going to go ahead. Stef, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you and how you got to usertesting.com.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for the great introduction. I think you could be selling user testing at this point, as good as I do. So I actually run the demand gen team here at User Testing. We're a growing company still, and we put a lot of emphasis on, providing great customer experience and making sure that our product is usable and useful for the people who need it. So we spend a lot of time on content. We spend a lot of time on helping people drive more value for their subscription accounts with us. And so, that's sort of the day-to-day for me, is thinking about how can I drive the attention and the brand awareness around our product, and work with a lot of different folks in the company to make sure that we're providing a good experience throughout all of that. So that means a lot of dog fooding. I get to use our product a ton too, which is great. I came to user testing because I used to work at lynda.com, and we were working on some new web copy and a new space on our, on the website. And we had someone on the UX team at Lynda say, I think I need to get you some feedback on this, because these are some interesting ideas, but I'm not sure if they're right. So why don't we test it? And I was like, okay, sure. You want to test it? He's like, just give me a week. Just give me 5 days. Give me this week and I'll get something to you. And so we're all like twiddling our thumbs, a little nervous, like what's going to happen next? And we get this email, and his name is Derek. He's no longer with the company, but he really changed my understanding of user feedback. So I got this, this report from him that was generated through user testing and these videos. And I watched people try to figure out these new pages we had designed. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're on the right page. All right, this is good. This is a good track. And so then we used that feedback to, improve what we had already done and change some of the language and everything. And it was like, in that moment, I realized the power of user feedback. And fast forward a few years, user testing was hiring. I just thought it was a great opportunity, based in the Bay Area. So there's a lot of, tech feedback and insights happening around here. And so I jumped at the chance, and now here I am. So
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. So Stef, let's dive in a little bit.
Yeah.
With user experience, obviously you hear UX testing and everything like that. There's a lot of different terms around it. What is the biggest importance for an organization, a company that has a website or has an app or has any kind of branding to some extent, or digital branding to some extent? How important is that quantitatively to an organization?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things that a lot of companies are doing, possibly making some mistakes around, is assuming that we are the end user. In some cases we are. Maybe we're selling shoes and we buy shoes, so it seems like a little easier fit. But for a lot of companies, we need to start thinking about things from a different perspective, and we don't always have that because we've got biases of our own. So for anyone who's focused on UX or improving conversions or writing marketing campaigns that are targeting people other than themselves, it's important to see how people react to that outside of our own bubbles. And so, that's where user feedback of any kind can become really helpful and useful. And there's lots of ways to do that. It doesn't have to be with user testing our solution. Basically, if you've got access to any of your customers or prospects, even, the old friends or people on the bus type thing, you can start asking other people for input on what you're doing. And, what we find is, like, the quicker you can do that, the more effective you can make your messaging, your calls to action, your your redesign if you're going really big, and then continuing to optimize along the way because of the feedback that you're getting. So, UX is really about creating an experience that resonates with people and what they need to get out of, a website or a mobile app. And a lot of companies just need to remember to focus on getting that feedback from other people outside of their own circles. So I would say that that's, one area where the more often you're asking, then the faster you're going to get to, the right fit with messaging and results.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I agree with that too. I think, the fast, if you can get that feedback up front, if you can get that information, it's going to save a lot of dollars down the road to find out, maybe one small thing within a design, or, one reason why people aren't interacting or maybe following through in a sale. Right. If you could find that out early, for a much, before you spend, maybe even a couple $100s, couple, tens of thousands, or maybe even hundreds or millions of dollars, you can start to figure out these things earlier on.
Yeah. If you're, if you're thinking about running A/B tests and, or maybe redesigning a specific page on your site, if you're thinking about doing that, it's actually pretty dangerous to invest a lot of time and money on design elements, code. As soon as you have to start working with engineers and calling on coders, then you're going to be racking up a pretty hefty bill. And, we have budgets for that stuff, but it's nice to know that you're actually spending that money in the right places right away. And that's, I think, that's where user testing fits in.
So, Steph, this brings me to my next question.
Yeah.
So the idea of testing, I think, a lot of people, it's common sense to some degree, test it, make sure it works, then obviously deploy and start, throwing the dollars into it. But what kind of testing does usertesting.com get into as far as, just the specifics?
Yeah, sure. So the platform itself actually lets you record people as they use your website or mobile app. So, and we actually now have the ability for you to record an experience around you. So if you're Clorox and you want to see how people are using your product in the home, you could actually record that experience with our technology, which is pretty cool. And that's in the wild testing. So there's, that's sort of the platform, the solution that you would get, right, is getting these videos and some sort of a dashboard that you could watch later. But the types of studies that you might want to run on that are like very early on preference testing. I've got a couple different designs. I want to know before I spend money coding, which one resonates with people, right? So that's just a basic preference testing. If you've got a working prototype, you can load it up into something like Envision app or another tool that lets you create a more functional experience without having to pay for code yet. Then you can actually watch people interact with these ideas that you have in a conceptual state and see if there's going to be flow issues or onboarding issues or even just general usability issues, right? So you can do that, and that's all unmoderated. So I don't have to sit there. I don't have to ask people questions and then try to write down the answers. I just get the video because I've set a template of questions up ahead of time and sent that to a user. So you can also do moderated stuff. So if I really wanted to sit down with you and ask you some questions and sort of capture that experience on screen, then I can actually guide you through things. So sometimes more complex ideas or the ability to view someone's dashboard and see how they interact with data, you might want to do that together because it could be easier to get off track in an unmoderated study. So that's just sort of a sampling of what you can do. We have gotten really creative. We have a research services team here who helps a lot of companies, plan what their studies need to be and understand what the objectives are, and then, builds that study plan with you as a client to make sure you're getting what you need. So they've gotten super creative with things. We've actually watched people use, go from filling out FedEx forms and then finding the location and then going into the location, and how easy is it to, handle that entire operation. So that cross-channel or omni-channel experience is a really fun area to start to think about,
So it really, the kind of testing, Steph, does it depend on maybe if it's an app or if it's a coding type of thing, or, programming? Was it completely customizable for a business? Is there, kind of one preferred over another, like a particular like streamlined strategy?
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Well, depending on the kind of information you want to find out, you might run a different type of study. And so if you really just want to see how people interact with something or get their feedback on something, you could do that through a Google Hangout, right? You can do that through user testing our product. You can actually go down the hall and find someone you don't know, introduce yourself, and then just watch them and get their thoughts as they're trying to figure something out. So I mean, there's sort of like that early funnel stuff, and then you've got like, all right, I need to understand how can I differentiate my product offering compared to my competitors. So you might want to actually then ask people to go to 2 different websites, one of them being yours, one being a competitor's, and then ask them the same questions and find out, how difficult is that for them to make a decision on whether they would buy said t-shirt or a new couch online, and what's the information they're looking for, and which experience do they prefer, and then you can use that to build a better competitive advantage or reposition your offering so that you can actually stay in line with the market. So there are a lot of different ways that you can start testing for things. It depends on the objectives.
And that's a good point too. I think when it comes down to, anything when it comes to digital business growth strategies, one of the things is looking at the objective. There's not always a certain set way of doing things, whether you're talking about search engine optimization, user testing, programming, especially, or any of those types of creative services. So I have to really agree with you there. Yeah. So Stef, can you, is there a success story, sort of a case study example of what, what you've been able to do, or user testing has been able to do for an organization?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually just trying to think about something that recently we did. So we have all these case studies. I'm going to use our own website as an example. So we have all these case studies, and because I'm testing our own stuff a lot. So we have these case studies. We had created a page to hold them all. You can read the details, download a PDF, that sort of thing. And they were I like to call them hidden under the About Us section, but I'm not actually sure if that was just me that thought that they were hidden. So we recently started creating custom pages on our website that talk to specific types of people, right? So marketers are really looking for new A/B testing ideas. You need to know how to optimize your landing pages. Maybe you need to write better descriptions for products, whatever those big burning questions are that you have. There's specific language that, us as marketers, we're using and we're thinking that way. So we created a page specific for marketers. And when we did that, we created a new section called Who Uses Us? And we actually nested the case studies right under that section, which to me seems really logical. And then we did some user testing, and we just said, go to the homepage, tell us in a few words, what do you think this site is about? And so, okay, we get that sort of thing, and then say, all right, if you wanted to find examples of how other companies are using our product, where would you go? So open-ended question. Now we just get to watch them in action. And we had 4 out of 5 people go through the navigation once, select who uses us, and find the page without having to click around a bunch or hit the back button a million times, that sort of thing. So, that's like a small win for us, but that does mean that we're eliminating, any chance of confusion. And anytime that you get, put a roadblock in somebody's way, then you're kind of eroding that experience for them, right? So that was a small win. We have lots of clients who've been able to generate. Some of our clients are generating millions of dollars because of changes that they've made in presentation of information. If you've got a very clear single call to action and people still aren't doing it, then you might want to find out why, right? So, it's because they don't feel like they understand enough about the product to sign up for a free trial. So why don't we make sure they have enough product information first, and then we'll drive the free trial. And that has made a big difference, for companies when you start to look at the numbers behind traffic and what are your results, right? So if you're driving shopping cart conversions and people feel like they can't tell what colors you offer something in, you might want to fix that.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And you mentioned your example here, user testing there, Stef. Mm-hmm. With other types of organizations, there's a lot of different types. There's SaaS companies, software as a service. You have professional services. You have, e-commerce, retail. Have you seen a correlation in terms of how these different types of organizations are utilizing a service like user testing?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, user feedback can help just about any role within a company if you really want to think about it that way. Like, we definitely see a lot of digital marketing folks testing campaigns. Like, okay, does this message seem right? If you had, we've seen people create a Gmail inbox and then populate it with a bunch of emails with different subject lines and unread subject lines, and ask people to go to this, to their inbox and pick the subject line that seems the most compelling to them, right? And so you start to see how people are evaluating what is worth their time. So that's like, one specific example of like how a digital marketer might use us. But then in the same company, somebody on the product team is actually working on some new feature ideas. They've got this roadmap that's been laid out for them. And they're like, I'm not really sure if this is going to be the right solution for us. Let's prototype some of this stuff and get it in front of people to see if they would actually use that tool or how they would best use that tool, and then optimize that experience. So same company, very different teams with very different goals in mind can really use, our platform in pretty different ways, which is it's pretty cool that way.
And that's so true. I think, especially when you get a company that has, it seems to me, you have the marketing department, right, who's focused on, reach, driving traffic, branding, all these different things around marketing. But then you have the product team that says, how are people interacting with this, right? And they understand a little bit more maybe about what decisions go into making or what decisions actually go to make somebody actually want to purchase. Yeah. So that's interesting that you said that, as far as the differences of how the different departments within an organization can utilize some feedback like that.
Yeah.
So that's really good stuff. As far as Stef, as far as what companies can do with the feedback that they're getting,
yeah,
what would you suggest? What have you seen companies do with that feedback?
Yeah. Well, the first thing, is just one, having a central repository for feedback, right? So it doesn't even matter the size of the company. I see a lot of small businesses using our services a lot, right? Because they have the same issues and same challenges, maybe just at different scale. So one thing is to look at everything that comes in from all the different channels where feedback might show up. So if you've got chat support, are you looking at those logs? Are you pulling out nuggets of information? Are those getting circulated throughout the company or to the person who might be able to actually impact change? It's pretty important to look at the feedback emails that come in. So if you've got product reviews and someone buys something, like people will often say like, I also had a really hard time finding this, or you never know what's going to show up in a review. So it's important to read that sort of stuff. And then if you're doing any sort of, user testing or user research, then depending on how you capture that information, taking good notes. There's some really cool tools out there. There's a rainbow spreadsheet, which I could send you a link to later. It just helps you capture information as you're talking to people and organize it so that you could share that with other people, or they could all be taking notes at the same time. So you use something like Google Spreadsheets for this. But the important thing is just capturing the information somewhere logically, and then sharing it out with the right teams, with the sense of like, we're here to improve things. So this isn't me saying like, you guys are doing that wrong. You need to redo everything. I think it's more in the spirit of how can we make sure people are really satisfied and happy with their experience with our brand. So user testing, we actually have a really cool platform that allows you to have all those videos in one place. And then there are follow-up questions that you can ask that would be like written questions. So you can download all that stuff if you want and share that with other people. And you also can, create like a highlight reel or clips of the key moments that you thought were most impactful and make a little highlight reel of those, and then just send that link around to people in your team or people that you're working with. So one person might own the account and do the research, but then they're sharing it with, the right folks.
And Steph, wouldn't that mean for marketing managers and people in sort of that, that role where, they're trying to get feedback so they can make better decisions, better ideas for where to put the budget and everything else.
Yeah.
Doesn't that make something like the highlight reel? Doesn't that, are you finding organizations or, what are your thoughts on getting that and presenting that to upper level management, when it comes to, getting budget approvals and everything else, like here's the proof without having to watch the half-hour video.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think some of the best ways to get buy-in for budget or big changes sweeping changes that you've really been championing, but people are just not buying in, is to get one of those videos in front of somebody who has the money, because they're going to just sit there and say, they can't do that. Like, oh no, we need to fix this. I don't care how much it costs, fix that thing, so that's going to happen. But the great thing too is like, you don't have to be a research expert to ask people for feedback. And that's, to me, something really important. What I find, having an expert on your side or on your team or someone that you can lean on to help you structure your studies and look for those moments, those nuggets, and put them together in clips and distill that down into action. That's where, having someone who's responsible for that will mean that you're just going to take more advantage of your solution, so you can sometimes have one person be the person that owns the findings and sharing those around and then creating the clips that you need in order to get what you need.
And it's really empowering. I see that, that tool right there as being something that's empowering, marketing managers or even anybody else that's, utilizing the testing or feedback process to get decisions and get things done essentially.
Yeah.
So Steph, with the kind of organizations that you deal with, is there a certain size of organization that, is there, is this, do you find a lot of small businesses, a lot of large businesses? Is there a way to work with the size of company based, and maybe the budgets that they have to look into this stuff? So I guess what kind of range of customers do you typically work with?
Yeah, we actually have everyone from, usability, UX, marketing consultants. So, one person with a seat license working on behalf of their own projects or clients, all the way up to like, somebody like Evernote, huge, big company, great suite of products, lots of people involved, so you can actually sort of span the gamut of any size of company or type of company. But the thing that is pretty consistent is it doesn't take long to get the video results, right? Like usually, unless you're asking for people with curly purple hair and polka dot shirts to take your study, then you're going to get results usually within a day or two, and most times it's the same day, within hours. So that just means that anyone can do it. It's just a matter of like prioritizing what it is you want to learn. And that actually is really freeing for companies of any size, so if you're a one-man shop and you've got a small site you need to do some fixes to and you're not sure what, user testing is a great solution. But if you're a very big company and you've got product roadmaps and you've got, a photography team that you're working with and if people resonate with those images, like you can still use the same platform. So, I don't actually know what the numbers are from a breakdown perspective, but I would say pretty much everyone's doing this to some degree. We have a lot of awesome clients on the roster.
Well, it makes sense too. Like I said, just like anything else, typically the larger, not in all cases, but the larger the company, not saying in size or people, but there's a lot of small companies that are doing a lot of big things.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is obviously going to change a little bit of the scope as far as, what level of testing that they're going to do.
Yeah.
So it's and the other thing I liked about what user testing does, and just in looking at this as a solution for our clients and future clients is that you guys do a really good job of vetting the testers. I took notice of that, just a little bit, read into that. Can you briefly just explain that process? Not the whole process, but like just sort of the vetting process.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the thing is, like, we realize that everyone from hospitals to city and state governments to major big box e-commerce and retail companies are going to be looking for a certain target audience for, any sort of feedback. So, if you're just looking to see if something works and if they get stuck somewhere, it doesn't really matter who it is you ask, right? But if you need to really find out if your messaging resonates with a specific audience type, then we need to have a huge panel of people so that you can actually whittle it down to those that you really need. So people say, oh, that sounds really interesting. I would love to get paid to give feedback. Right. So there is incentive for someone to sign up to be what we call, someone on our panel. And you can also bring your own panel. So if you have like internal employees that you wanted to get feedback from using the platform, or maybe a specific base of your customers, right? So that you need to have that context, then you can actually get them loaded up into the system to belong to you. They'd be your custom panel. So the ability to find who you need is important. So we ask people who sign up to be testers, like basic demographic information, like where are you located, what's your general income, what social networks are you on, are you a gamer, because we do a lot of game testing and mobile app testing. So what devices do you have, iPads, iPhone, Android? We ask all those questions. And then when you're setting up a study, you can say like, I need these people with these requirements, and then you can actually write screener questions to further refine that and focus. So you might say like, I'm really looking for marketing managers who have more than 5 employees. Like you couldn't get that through just the filters, but you could definitely add a screener to get the right people in your study.
And that's interesting too, you said about, the flexibility of the kinds of people that, you can kind of utilize your community, if you will, of testers or the panel, as you say. But also, having people in your organization maybe give you some feedback. And then just as a last question here, Stef, what impact do you feel that has maybe on an organization as far as maybe a morale perspective, sort of making people feel connected as part of the as part of the actual solution itself, so they feel close to it and sort of bought in, if you will.
Yeah, sure. So specifically around how are people who can use user testing, how do they feel about getting that chance to do that?
Probably more specifically to like somebody maybe in an organization, say, if you have, say, a marketing team, for instance, maybe you have a large marketing team, or maybe you're just, one marketing manager, but you have, all these other people that are affected by the decisions that you make. And obviously, whatever decision you make, you want to have total buy-in from those people, stakeholders. So, as far as the importance, have you found a connection between that and sort of a morale, a boost in morale type of thing? Is it, an opportunity not just to get feedback, but also to make people feel connected?
Oh, absolutely. I think, anytime you say you've got some ideas floating around and everyone's like, well, this is the best one, or I'm not sure, I think this is the best one. And asking other people is the quickest way to make a decision, right? Because the answer becomes pretty obvious. So if you say, well, all right, I'm not going to tell you how to do this thing, let's user test it. And then you come back with these results, and everyone's like, oh, okay, well then that's what we need to do. So there's that qualitative feedback that helps. But I think most teams are really curious about how people think about the work that they're doing, and it feels really darn good to say like, oh, you got to watch this video because that stuff you wrote, like, it helped us sell, or whatever. So I do think that there's you kind of come out as like a little champion, right? Because you're like, check out these videos. It's gonna be great. And a lot of times, if you're unsure of the decisions that you've made, this is a great way to validate that work.
Yeah, and I think so the platform itself really, Stef, as you mentioned, and from a lot of different perspectives, really, encompasses not only just the benefit, the end benefit, the end result of getting the right feedback and getting it in the right form, as you mentioned, through video and a lot of these other different formats, but also getting the right people involved, making sure that you have the right people testing it. I can't believe, I would imagine that's so huge. In terms of, making sure you're getting the right kind of feedback. Yeah. So this has been great, Stef. Do you have any other points, just to finish off the interview here? Is there any other points, anything we didn't discuss that you really feel is important to anyone that's out here looking to incorporate the user testing
Yeah.
service?
Yeah, I guess one of the things we've been talking about here a lot is not waiting until we've already developed something and already launched it to get feedback. Like, of course, that's a logical time to ask for some feedback on stuff. But what we're starting to do more and more is test more frequently and with smaller group sizes, maybe 5 people at a time, just getting some early qualitative feedback on some projects and stuff. And then using that to iterate a better solution. And then by the time we launch, it's going to be actually much better than if we just launched and then did a round of optimization. So I think people forget how and when feedback can be really useful. It's along the way. It's not just at the end. And it's sort of like an ongoing thing, right? Like, we will always be thinking about what is next on our website, or how can we make our apps resonate and create a better experience for people. So there's always going to be something next that we would want to test and optimize for. And this feedback is just a way for us to continue that process and not forget that it's not all just the one big picture, one big project sort of view, but that there are many components that we should be looking at differently. And not forgetting the different audiences. If you're selling e-commerce, the holidays are coming, you should be testing about not the people that you would think are your target audience. Like, if you sell basketballs, you're targeting people who play basketball. You should be targeting the people's parents, brothers, cousins, sisters, people who'll be buying the gift for the actual basketball player, right? So that's like a different audience that, especially around the holidays, matters a ton. Because other people that are not your typical audience are going to be thinking about purchases. And so it's just one of those things, right? Like, it never really ends. And it's important to do things, I think, in a shorter, quicker fashion, just so that we can make sure that we're, sort of leading the way instead of being always reactive.
Well, I think one word comes out of that stuff, which is timing. Getting the right timing on the testing, which is, before you launch and you realize that, hey, we should have did things differently, and everybody starts pointing fingers back and forth. At least, take that time, invest a little bit of time and money into the testing process. The dividends, it's going to pay dividends if you do it. It's just, to some degree, it's common sense, get feedback before you launch and before you start investing dollars into it. So this has been great, Stef.
Yeah. Thanks.
So any other points that you have?
No, but I would be happy to answer questions if anyone's got them. I think, this is, to me, one of the coolest tools right now in the market for marketers, because it's sort of our secret weapon. It is the thing that gives us the ideas and the insights we need to make better decisions. And I mean, analytics will tell us a lot about what is happening already, but we don't always know why. And so this is sort of the marriage of the two is just awesome. So.
Well, and I think, tying it to a strategy, and then we'll just finish up here. I think, tying it, the one thing I've always looked at phase 2 solutions, and this is something that we've gotten through to all of our consultants in our company, is that, it's part of a process, it's part of a strategy. So, it's not just something, hey, user testing sounds like a great idea, let's just go do it. It's a part of a bigger puzzle. We use puzzle pieces at our website. So, you take, one puzzle piece, which is a strategy. You have to mold that, you have to shape it, you have to get it in the right shape. But then ultimately you have to take all these different strategies, right? All these different puzzle pieces, and you have to bring them into one solid picture or vision, as I call it. To make everything work. So, looking at user testing, looking at, this type of approach and strategy, and incorporating that into maybe your marketing strategy, incorporating it into your search engine strategy, your email strategy, social strategy, whatever that strategy is. And I think that's absolutely critical to get, you start to get that synergy going, and ultimately it ends up, producing a return on an investment. I mean, without saying that word at the end of the day, why are we in business, right? We're not in business to spend money. We're in business to spend money and make it. That's those two things.
I think marketing teams especially want to be, revenue centers, not cost centers, right? And so there's always thinking about how we can do that and be strategic about it. Absolutely.
Right. Exactly. So, Stef, thanks again. I look forward to again. We're going to be continuing this segment or series that we have at Phase 2 Solutions, which is the experts on issues. Really love having you on today. For anybody else that's out there, we are going to be posting this interview directly on our experts on issues page on our website, which is under our resource tab. So you can check that out. You can also ask any questions. So we do have a comment section on there. If you have any questions or anything like that, obviously you can ask the question directly. You'll have a link directly to ask the question. So if it does come up, Steph will make sure that you get those questions.
Cool.
So again, you can check that out on phase2solutions.net. And we have our upcoming interviews on there as well. So if you go into our resource tab, you're going to be able to see our experts on issues page. So we always have a listing of upcoming interviews. And you can also check it out on our homepage as well. So always looking to provide value, always trying to, interview the experts that are out there. We're always trying to learn and always trying to incorporate that into our strategy or sort of architecting, business growth, digital business growth strategies for our clients. So I think this is, an important part of it. So with that said, everyone, thanks for tuning in today. And Steph, again, thank you. And we will take it from there.